Morning.
Morning.
All right, we are here today to be available to the press in relation to the turn-in of Officer Nicoletti this morning on various criminal charges related to his conduct on 676. Specifically, the DA's office has charged Officer Nicoletti with civil assault, with reckless endangerment of another person, with possession of an instrument of crime, and with official oppression. He was aware his day was coming. The attorney was arranged to turn himself in today. I have with me the head of our Special Investigations Unit, that is Tracy Tripp, who has supervised and been involved in this investigation. I also have with me Vincent Corrigan, who works in the Special Investigations Unit and has been directly involved, along with another attorney, Brian Collins, with this investigation. Are there any questions?
His attorney said that he was following orders and that the police department had given orders that chemical use was okay for dispersal. Can you hear me okay?
Not entirely, but I'm trying.
His attorney has said that he was following orders, that the police department okayed the use of chemical agents for dispersal, and that he did so to try and get people off the highway. Do you have any reaction to that or any comments to it?
I was following orders is not a defense to committing crimes. That's what, the Nuremberg defense? That doesn't work. As for the statement that masks were pulled from the faces of passive people who were sitting and kneeling, and that OC spray was sprayed into their face to remove them from the highway, that actually surprises me. I would have thought there would have been some claim, however false, that it was necessary for some other purpose than simply to get them off the highway. Let's just say I'm not too impressed with that defense.
My understanding is that all the charges are misdemeanors?
They are misdemeanors, as in all cases. We look very, very carefully at the evidence that we have. We looked at the specific definitions of the charges, and we did not let strong feeling or emotion get in the way of the legal analysis. We have brought charges that we feel are 100% supported by the law.
You worried about pushback from police?
No. I don't know why hardworking, decent, law-abiding police officers would be opposed to enforcement of the law. That's their job. They are there to hold other people accountable, and I believe that our best police officers do not want to be associated with officers engaging in allegedly criminal conduct.
The FOP said he thought this was another example of being out of balance with the way you responded to protests, that you're charging police officers and not the people who were looting stores and setting fires. Your response to that?
Well, this is yet another example of the FOP leadership's complete disinterest in the truth. The fact is that there are over 500 people who have been charged with burglary and criminal trespass during a similar time period, and there are at this time a few police officers looking at any charges. What the leadership of the FOP is really saying drags down the good reputations of the best police officers in the city, because what they're really saying is no matter what a police officer does, that police officer should never be charged. What they are really saying is we are above the law, in the same way that Donald Trump, whose candidacy the leadership of the FOP is endorsing, has said he is above the law. No, you're not. You're not above the law. The law applies to everyone. It applies equally and in an even-handed fashion.
Are you going to seek to hold him on bail?
I'm going to turn, I actually know the answer to that, but I'd rather turn it over to the Chief SIU, Tracy Tripp, to answer that question.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Palmer, I think you asked about bail. What was the question?
Are you gonna, what day are you gonna seek?
Oh, ROR, it's already been set, is my understanding. That's released on your own copies, no
So
matter.
he has been arraigned at this point?
He has definitely at least been charged. I believe arraignment has happened. If it's not, it's imminent.
Are there any other questions? Any questions?
How much video evidence has your office reviewed? Is there a lot of different, obviously there are many different angles, different videos, does anything stood out?
Let me call Mr. Corbin forward, please.
In terms of how long, how much time the video was, I couldn't tell you. I've looked at many different kinds of video from different angles, video provided by police sources, video provided by news sources, video provided by people who simply use their cameras. And so we have still photographs. There's a large amount of video that relates to this particular incident.
All right, can you recap the charges against, I missed the first part.
Sure thing. The charges in this matter are simple assault against 3 victims, possession of an instrument of crime, reckless endangerment of another person, and official oppression. Are there any other questions? Anything else we can answer for you?
Is there a message, is a larger message this is sending out to police officers and to the community in general about police officer committing crimes?
The larger message is that we are lifting up the good and decent and hardworking police officers in Philadelphia by knocking ones who commit crimes out of the way. That is the larger message. The larger message that we are restoring trust between communities and the officers who are there to serve them by making sure everyone understands that this is a city and that this is a country that still believes in equality and that there's going to be justice that is even-handed and no longer at the service of politics. Is there
These are officers on the ground that were charged. What about the people higher up who gave them an order? Do you look into that?
The officer at this point, Officer Nicoletti, was on the ground and he committed certain actions. We have many ongoing investigations. We are not in a position to comment on them at this time. Are there any other questions? All right.
What last one, possible sentence he could face if convicted?
Do you want to get the back on this?
So if you're asking me the sort of technical, what is his minimum versus maximum sentence that we do in, for example, guilty plea colloquies, I can't do that math in my head. It's a number of single-digit years added all together. In reality, sentencing in Pennsylvania is done in a guideline fashion. He is charged with misdemeanors, and he is, per force, of his prior record, 0, right? He has a 0 offense gravity score. 0 prior record score. The offense gravity scores for misdemeanors are not high. It's going to depend on how the trial goes and what the judge thinks afterwards. So, but nothing lengthy.
Let me just add, I agree 100% with that, but let me also add this. If you go down to 6th and Market and you look at their somewhat more complicated sentencing guideline schemes, one of the enhancements that they look at is whether you abused a position of public trust. When you're speaking about law enforcement, whose power not only comes from the people, but whose payment comes from the people, and whose oath is to uphold the law, these are the people who hold everybody else accountable. One factor to be considered at sentencing is whether or not there's been a violation of your obligation as someone who holds a position of public trust. Another thing to look at was this simply some sort of a personal conflict, or what exactly was the consequence of this activity? The consequence of the activity here is to take people who were peacefully engaging in sacred constitutional rights under the First Amendment, rights of assembly, rights of free speech, and whose purpose was to make their country a better place. It which is what patriots do, not only to harm them, but frankly, it's the kind of conduct that tends to stop other people from engaging in their constitutional rights in the place where they were written. So those are certainly some unusual factors in addition to the guidelines that a judge will have to evaluate in the event of a conviction. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.